So here we are again. The Guinness Six Nations 2023 is upon us, and I know for a fact that I'm super excited, not just for fantasy rugby, but also for each game of this year's tournament. I think that we say it every year, but I think this year's competition is genuinely the most competitive. You've got Italy, who obviously normally finish last, but their team is really growing. Obviously, victories over Wales and Australia in the autumn were absolutely huge for them. Wales, Gats is back, so anything can happen. Scotland are building and probably look one of the weakest teams actually. Maybe just because there's no change like in Wales and England, but they've obviously got Russell and Hogg and a new captain in Jamie Ritchie. England are with Borthwick now, Owen Farrell captain, so lead the charge from them could be huge as well. And then you've got number 1 and number 2 in the world in Ireland and France. It might be a Grand Slam decider between them, but anything can happen in this competition. Before we get into the video, if you don't know already, we have a sponsor for this year's Six Nations in Fanzo. So if you really want to help the channel, all you've got to do is download the Fanzo app, join JG Rugby in the Guinness Point Predictor, and basically all you have to do is predict some scores and you can win literally some free prizes. It's all free to do, so if you really want to support the channel, then that'll be absolutely fantastic and I'll be really appreciative of that. So download the Fanzo app, go to the Guinness Prime Predictor and join the league JG Rugby. Also, whilst you're here, 80% of you aren't subscribed, so what are you doing? Go down, hit the subscribe button, you don't want to miss this year's Six Nations. And just like that, it's like we never left. So my front row for this year's round 1 of the Six Nations is Genge, Sheehan and Sinclair. So, reason why I've gone with the 2 props, Genge and Sinclair, I think they just really suit Borthwick's game. Obviously, Genge was Borthwick's Leicester captain when they won the league, so he's got real faith in him. And look, we know that Genge is a star performer for England in particular. Sinclair's also the same. In that 2019 World Cup final, they really missed him. Also, Dan Cole had to play around 70 minutes of rugby, which also didn't help, but Sinclair is a really strong asset for England. So if these two can be firing and England have a good pack, then they have a good chance of coming high in this year's Six Nations. But then also you've got Dan Sheehan, right? He is now leading the line for Leinster at hooker, but then now also Ireland too. Look, there's other options at hooker. It's probably a really important pick because they get good turnovers, but also that drive and maul. Got the likes of Julian Marchand, Jamie George obviously, and Ken Owens captain for Wales. But I just think Dan Sheehan is pretty much up there with the best choice in the game. Just think because Ireland is so dominant, and obviously with Leinster absolutely firing this year and previous years, he's going to be one to look out for sure. Next up in my second row, I've gone with Tadhg Beirne and Lorenzo Cannone. So first off, let's deal with the obvious. Tadhg Beirne is an absolute baller. In this year's game, it's obviously changed a little bit with regards to how points are scored. So that's turnovers get huge loads of points now, as well as line-out steals. And to be honest, Tadhg Beirne is up there with like number 1 in the world. So I think he's literally a no-brainer. He gets really good points anyway. Plays like a back row player in that second row. So he's just going to get a shed load of points. If he's not in your team, I'll be worried. Second is Lorenzo Cannone. You'd probably be thinking, why on earth have you picked an Italian player in this team? Well, Cannone is down as a second row in the game, but he's actually starting 8th for Italy. And in the previous Six Nations and Autumn Nations, he's got some really decent points. Because obviously he's one of their main ball carriers. So if Italy do strike, not likely against France, Cannone will be a real asset to that Italian team. Now onto the back row, and to be honest, I'm not actually fully set on this. There's huge exclusions, so maybe I should go through them first. So people that I haven't picked are the likes of Josh van der Fleer, World Player of the Year, Toby Faletau, even Greg Aldry, who I said is an absolute nailed-on position. But look, I've picked Jack Morgan, Caelan Doris, and Ben Curry. So, Caelan Doris has been absolutely fantastic for Leinster and Ireland of late, and he is actually starting 8 for Ireland. Just means he will get through a lot of carries. Obviously, Van der Fleer does exactly the same, but I think lots of people will be picking Van der Fleer as an obvious choice. I think Doris kind of runs under the radar a little bit, but will also pick up huge points as well. Jack Morgan has been absolutely firing for Ospreys, and with obviously their recent form and that win in Leicester, he's been a huge boost. You've got the likes of Faletau, who's a real flair player, and also Tipperick. But I think Jack Morgan really adds balance to that as well. His carrying ability is huge, and to pick up in those wide channels and get on the end of tries is, I think, going to be really important for Wales. And lastly, maybe you're raising your eyebrows a little bit at this one, but I've gone with Ben Curry. So, just like his brother, he's absolutely destructive and really dynamic for Sale. He's also been Sale's captain a lot this season, so it shows how Alex Sanderson is putting a lot of faith in him. I also think that Borthwick sees that faith as well. He's picked him at 7, which is notoriously a really important position, especially in a rugby game, so I think Ben Curry is absolutely going to smash it, and watch him in turnovers. He's going to be absolutely insane. Another eyebrow raiser here in the halfbacks is the fact that I haven't picked Antoine Dupont. I know it's probably going to kick me right in the teeth, but I have gone for it. So just to talk a little through my thinking here, I've gone with Ben White and Ntamak. So my thinking behind this is I was going to pick White and Ntamak or Dupont and Russell. Reason why I've gone with White and Ntamak is because of the Italy game. So I think this probably suits Ntamak a little bit more than, say, Dupont. Really bold statement here, but I think Ntamak will get a lot more of the ball. Huge passes, try assists, but also the running rugby that he likes to play. Ben White is also really cheap and a really great option as well against an England team who are obviously pretty unexpected with regards to the performance they're going to give. So it could change last minute to Dupont and Russell, but this is also a cheaper option. So I've got enough players in my team. Now to the back line, which actually I think gets really exciting. So I've actually gone for De Mortier and Gary Ringrose. So De Mortier is actually down as a centre in fantasy. He's also a really, really cheap option, but he's starting on the wing for France. And the French bench, there's only Jalibert on the bench with regards to backs, so it doesn't look likely that De Mortier will be taken off, so a full 80 minutes looks likely for him. He's also had a great season for Lyon. I'm pretty sure he's a top try scorer in the top 14 at the moment, so you know he can get over that try line. Then Gary Ringrose, I mean, there's not really much to say here. He's absolutely fantastic. I think he's gone under the radar a little bit with how important he is for both Leinster and Ireland. I think he's just a really shoe-on position for that centre spot. You've got the likes of Gael Fickou as well, who did actually run pretty close, but obviously you're only allowed to pick 4 from each nation. I think Ringrose's attacking ability will get them over the line against Wales, so I think if he's not in your team, then you're doing something wrong. Then finally, in my starting 15, I've gone with Penaud, Ramos and Duhan van der Merwe. So first off, Thomas Ramos at fullback, really, really slick player, obviously playing for Toulouse. He does actually kick for both Toulouse and France, so he's going to get you really good points with obviously penalties and conversions. But also against Italy, the backfield space is going to be terrific. So he's going to be really likely to get some really good meter points. And then also, as I said, kicking ability too. 50-22s are also worth some really good points in this game. So also why I've picked Ntamak and Ramos here. Van der Merwe against England was absolutely destructive the last few years he's played against them. but I just think he's such a terrific player, and he just adds something so much different to that Scotland team. And obviously with the link up with Russell, I think this is going to be a really key part of their game. And then finally, for my captain, I have gone with Damien Penaud. So it was actually close between those three backfield players for France in Ramon de Mortier and Penaud, but I have gone with Penaud just because of his experience. I think he's an absolute try-scoring machine, right? So I think last year he was top try scorer in the international scene, which he'll want to obviously carry on with this tournament as well. Scored a hat-trick last time out in the Six Nations as well, so he'll be wanting to add to that. I just think he's a really solid option. Many people will probably be picking him for captain, but I think the level of quality that he's got, how can you not pick him? Then on my bench, I've got Justin Tipuric, Rio Dyer, and as my super sub, I've gone for Ben Earl. So Ben Earl is the only back row cover for England. Obviously, with it being a new team and relatively new back row as well, I think Ben Earl is going to get some good minutes as well. He's an absolute class player too, Prem Player of the Year, I think a few years ago, so I just think that he adds something very different to that England team, really dynamic, but also huge over the ball as well. Other options you could probably go for in Super Sub as well that I was looking at was for France, the likes of Macalou as well, so similar to Ben Earl in respect that he's a back row player, but also Jalibert because he covers that entire back line, so if one of the backs get injured for France, then Jalibert will most likely come on as a sub. Also got the likes of Jack Walker, who plays for Harlequins, a really good hooker for England. If Jamie George gets injured, which he has done in the past, and obviously he got concussion a few weeks ago, then he'll come into the fray. But for me, Ben Earl is probably the best super sub option right now. So here you have it. This is my final team, maybe going into round 1 in the Six Nations. I say maybe because obviously I like to do some tinkering with it and change it around a little, but let me know down in the comments who you've gone for, especially for super sub and also captain, because these positions are going to be really important for obviously going up in the rankings within your leagues. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, hit a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys for a roundup video, and good luck for this first round.